Happy New Year, everybody! It's 2022. Whether you make it or not, I'm thankful that you're here. So, with the new year coming in, we are expecting a lot of things for the new year ahead. But there is so many things that we can actually look back and learn from our mistakes and lessons that we have learned for the past 2 years, especially during the COVID pandemic. So, with the COVID pandemic reaches an end game, what can we learn from our past? Let's continue with today's podcast. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lim Kopi podcast. My name is Kokau and this is the podcast. And I'm really very thankful that I'm back here. I know it's been some time since I've recorded an episode for the Lim Kopi podcast. And I've been quite busy with my full-time job. I'm not sure that's a very good excuse, but still, I am very busy for the past 2 months. I actually had 2 episodes that I want to wrap up this season of this podcast, season 2021. But because I couldn't, finish up with it because of my full-time job, so I had to push back about 2-3 episodes worth of content for this year, at least for the first half. I quickly finish up before I plan for the third season. And in the third season, there is so much that I am going to do. And I am really looking forward to see what the new season of the podcast is going to bring. So with that, let's go into our Kopi talk for today. I do have Earl Grey milk tea. And yeah, it's basically one of my favorite drinks again. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times in the podcast already. I'm losing track of what I've drank so far in the series. So I'm pretty sure I've drank Earl Grey milk tea before. So yeah, so cheers to this new year. It's always great to start out the new year with Earl Grey milk tea. So if I'm not drinking Earl Grey milk tea, it's just going to be Milo or soya milk basically. I love these 3 drinks to the core. So if you have any of these 3 drinks, I'll just be like, yes, please, I would love to have it. In case if you can't tell, I'm having a new background at the moment. Mainly because of one simple reason. I just want to have a change of a background. And I also want to enjoy my seat. So it's like, in case if you didn't really notice, for the past few episodes when I do my podcast, it's always on the floor. So like the guests will be sitting on the floor and everything, and I won't say it's the most comfortable spot per se, but it gets the job done. So that's why I wanted to sit on my chair, which I actually built this chair last year, and just to enjoy this new background. And as well as if you can't tell, this is actually a new PC that I got myself, so I'll talk about that later on. But I am so thankful that this year is going to bring a lot of new things for me, and I'm so looking forward to many things. But before I can look forward to 2022 and what the future is going to bring for me, I have to really look back and think about and reflect about what has the past 2 years brought for me. So for 2020 and 2021, it has been both challenging and yet fruitful at the same time. I launched the Lim Kopi podcast during the pandemic, and I would say that it's really, really awkward to start out this podcast during the pandemic, mainly because of one simple reason. I expected it to launch it without any issues or anything. So it would be smooth sailing, able to get a venue itself. I actually wanted to book a venue for every episode so that the guests can come in, then we can talk about their daily lives and their stories and everything. But unfortunately, with the current world events, we can't do that. So that's why we are stuck to doing it at home. So the very first few episodes, it's done through Zoom meetings, or at least through online. Actually, the very first episode, fun fact, was actually a live stream. So we did a live stream on Facebook, and it was just a little test that I wanted to do, and it was really fun to do it. But I think with live streams, it came with a lot of interesting problems. So in the future, I might go back to doing live streams, episodes of Lim Kopi podcast, but that is something that maybe in the future I can do. But with 2020, that was where I think the world really stood still with so many problems, mainly because of COVID itself, with the lockdown, or at least in Singapore we call it the circuit breaker, or depending where you're living, you have your lockdown and all that. And of course it wasn't pleasant staying at home. At least in Singapore, it lasted for about 1.5 months or 2 months. I can't exactly remember how long was the circuit breaker, but I remember it was around April to around early June or late May. I might be wrong, so I may put an edit down there to say that that's the actual period of circuit breaker, as well as staying at home wasn't the most fun thing to do. And to be honest, I'm so glad that we are not confined to the spaces of our own homes anymore, so we are able to go around, meet our friends, do our own things, go to work. Even though work from home, it still remains somewhat of a default right now as of this episode. I mean, you can go back to work already in the office, but it still remains as a default in working at home lah. Other than that, I can go for social activities here and there, going to church and all that. I mean, all this is just really interesting and fascinating. It's like going out from the cave after like 1 year of hibernation, and suddenly you see everything just opening up, and then you're so not used to seeing crowds. I remember that when I went to my first ever physical church service, I was like so amazed that we are back. We are back, and there is like more than 5 people around, and we are in a place where there is like so many people around. And when the numbers for like worship services increases, I think my sense of anxiety went up, mainly because it's like I'm not used to the numbers. Is there social distancing for any social gatherings? But of course there is. Everybody adhere to the rules and everything, just that I wasn't very comfortable knowing the fact that 1,000 people is in the service. Or at least when I go to an event or something, there's so many people in the building itself, or going to a wedding, or going to a conference, or going to whatever. It's just a very weird feeling. And going back to workplaces and seeing people, gathering during lunch or dinner and all that, where no social gathering was allowed. It was so weird to see all of this happening in the workplace. So I was very thankful that we adhere to all these rules, and I'm still COVID-free. I know that getting COVID might be an eventual thing as we're reaching towards COVID endemic, in terms of, becoming more towards a flu thing. And with new variants coming in, it's gonna make it more trickier to really avoid COVID. So getting COVID itself, yes, it's a bit of a eventually you'll get it thing, but at the same time, it's like if you can kind of avoid it, just try your best to avoid it. Nobody wants to get sick, and I know it's gonna be unpleasant to be sick lah. So during the whole circuit breaker itself, like I said, it's really unpleasant to stay at home. But thankfully, during the circuit breaker period, I was doing a part-time job. So some context is that before circuit breaker, I actually resigned from my full-time job, mainly because of personal reasons, and as well as some issues as well lah. So I'm not gonna talk about that. But when I left the company, I was, taking a month's break to, just figure out myself. And just nice, COVID happened. And in terms of like lockdown, the DORSCON Orange for Singapore happened. And I was like thinking, I mean, I still need to feed myself, right? My bank account is depleting, right? What's the best way to settle all of this? I was looking through like a part-time WhatsApp group itself and trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward from that. And I realized that the best way to deal with all of this is to just get a part-time job. I'm not good in my designing skills or whatever. I didn't get any freelance projects to work on. So I had no choice to just work in a part-time basis lah. So I was working in a factory. I was working in manufacturing for a bit. I was a factory worker. So that itself was really eye-opener. I didn't expect myself to, work in a factory for 3 months. I was working with Chansing. So Chansing, if you're watching this, yeah, that was the crazy period of our time where we are earning so little for the amount of work that we are doing. And it was so painful because we were working for 12 hours shifts. And it was mentally very draining, physically draining. I remember coming back home just feeling like a zombie every day and dreading the fact that I have to really sleep early because the next day I have to wake up at around 6 o'clock. By the time I have to reach to the factory before 8 o'clock. So, and then it's like 12-hour shift until 8 o'clock or something. So, it gets very tiring after a while. But because with shift work, I was able to work on the podcast. So that was one thing that happened last year. So in case if you're confused, like when I talked about my part-time job in my previous, in the very first few episodes, that was what I was referring to. And then after when I finished that part-time job, I finished a contract with the company for about 3 months. I actually joined another company itself. I was a safety distancing ambassador. So what it means is that I was taking care of the measures and at the facility and making sure that everything is basically well taken care of. Everybody is adhering to the restrictions. Nobody is flouting the rules and I have to enforce them if anybody does their flouting. And to be honest, it wasn't the most fun, but I enjoyed it to the point where I guess I was able to be a bit more free and I can choose the shifts that I wanted. So I had more time to work on my personal projects. I had time to, just have fun and everything before I was coming back home and working on my projects and all of that. And it was a holiday for me, and I took this time especially to just work on myself, just talking to people and making friends, and just did a lot of soul searching especially. So with that, I finished working with my part-time job at around December, mainly because the contract itself was ending already, and I wanted to find a full-time job from then onwards. I wanted to fix my life, and I thought that having 1 year off from work, from doing creative things was a bit appropriate because I have already took this time to reflect on myself, took this time to have a break without thinking too much about creative, and now suddenly jumping back into creative industry. So when I was doing my job interviews, a lot of people were fascinated about my story about why did I choose to come back to the creative industry, or at least to the film industry, doing what I'm doing right now. Because it's I've took this 1 year gap doing part-time jobs, doing my own personal projects, and I would say that it was a fascinating journey. I mean, to be honest, without this journey, I don't think I will be who I am today. I don't think I'm able to go through who I am as a person, and I don't think I'll be able to do all my personal projects during that time and set up a foundation of what the Lim Kopi podcast is all about. And with that, I'm very thankful that 1 year of gap actually did happen for me. So when I was working for my full-time job, I'm actually currently doing video editing for a production company. And I must say that it's really exciting for me because I came from a motion graphics background. So doing motion graphics background, its workflow is so much different to doing pure video editing. So it's basically just sequencing of video clips together to form a nice video together itself, instead of just working on effects and motion graphics. So the workflow itself, it's totally different. So I came from an After Effects background. In case there's any creatives out there listening, I was from an After Effects background. Now I'm working on Premiere Pro way more often now that I actually forgotten how to use After Effects already after a while. So it was really weird going back to After Effects and using it to do things sometimes. But I'm thankful that things happened and got the chance to improve on my skill sets. And now that I'm applying some of the things that I've learned in my work to my videos that I'm doing for my Lim Kopi podcast, and as well as my own personal YouTube videos, which I should have been doing, but I was so busy for the past 2 months. As of this is January, and I didn't have the time to do it. And not that I'm complaining that I have no time or I'm complaining about my full-time job. I'm thankful that my full-time job has really allowed me to do what I'm doing, as well as giving me food on the table. So thank you so much for providing for me. And honestly, I cannot express enough gratitude to the colleagues has been so patient with me, teaching me things, and I really learned so much about video editing that I didn't expect myself to learn. So it was a very steep learning curve, but I'm glad that I went through this whole process itself. In 2021, two major events happened for me. There was the 5th anniversary for my Character Coders experiment. I'm very thankful that the photo series has reached its 5th anniversary, and I probably might find some time to talk about it in an episode of the Lim Kopi podcast very soon. Probably I'll get a friend of mine to talk about it together with us, about photos and everything. But with the Character Coders experiment hitting its 5th anniversary, I did two things especially. So one was that I did like a postcard series where I actually started selling postcards. So if you want to get some postcards from like me and from the photo series, do check out the link below or on the screen right now if you're watching it from YouTube, which you should. I produce all these video versions for you guys to see our beautiful faces, not just mine, but as well as my guests as well. So please do come by to see the YouTube versions, and do check out the link for the postcards where you can get it, and do check it out, and do support the Character Coders experiment, because a portion of the proceeds is also going to support the research of curing character coders. I'll talk more about that in the future as well. As well as for the 5th anniversary, I also started to work on producing the 300th image series for like a portrait series lah. So the idea was that to create a celebration of 10 photos, and these 10 photos is basically a portrait series of 10 different people plus myself, of course, that are very good friends of mine or people that have impacted me in a way, and I just want to give them an opportunity to like take a nice photo for them now, just to improve on my photography skills as well. But I realized that my side is that I'm lacking on a lot of portraits as well. So usually typically what I do is that take a picture of them, I did send it to them. So far who is involved is Chansing is involved, Eden is involved as well. So thank you for the both of them who actually came down and participated in that for the photo series as well. I have Jing Ting involved as well. Thank you so much, Jing Ting. I have Grace involved as well. So both of them, thank you so much for agreeing to this. I'm still looking for 6 more people. So in case if you are listening to this and if you love to get in touch with me on doing up the photo series with me, of taking a portrait of you, do let me know, and I would love to take a photo of you for the Character Coders experiment. It's a very meaningful series, and I don't want to give this a miss. I had to skip it because I have a backlog of photos that I wanted to post, so I actually paused it halfway and just work on other projects at the moment lah. Other than that, last year I celebrated 10 years of content creation. I wanted to do a mini documentary in terms of my journey, in terms of what I've done so far, especially showcasing a little bit of my old videos here and there. I want to do a reaction to my old videos as well. So I don't know, we might do it one day. Whether like do I have the courage to look through like my old videos or not, that's a whole other story to talk about. I'm honestly really scared, but well, we shall see. Whether like will I get too freaked out by that or not. And also like I will go through the comments, because like I think I talked about it when I was in the Stan Lee's episode, where during my old videos it was very cringy and it was very bad, and I got really affected by it when I was in secondary school. I got bullied quite a bit because like the things that I've done is so bad, and then people make fun of me from there, and they mistaken it as me trying to be famous. But I was really experimenting with video making, and I really enjoy creating videos from there. So that was one side of the story that I would love to talk about it. I'm going to take a break from this because my throat is really dry from just talking non-stop for the past 20 minutes so far. I just want to basically take a quick sip of water, and I'll see you guys after a quick water break. Right, see ya! So we are back. Welcome back to this episode. We are doing the second part of this podcast or at least this episode itself. In the previous part, we were talking about, what has happened for me for the past 2 years. And like I said, I'm not complaining or anything. I know COVID pandemic has pretty much affected you, or at least like if it doesn't affect you too much, I'm sure it's affected your friends, your family, or whoever around you. So if it's not you, it's them, basically. So the COVID pandemic has obviously affected me in many ways that I did not imagine. But at the same time, I'm still very thankful that it has brought so many milestones in my life. And I can't believe that, 2 years has just passed by like that. Come on, don't we have the cure to COVID by then already? Come on, let's just quickly get it done with. So my prediction for 2022 is that I sincerely hope that 2022 will be the end game for COVID. So depending on my prediction, this could really end up well, or this could age really badly. So I don't know. So let the future God Cow judge on this episode and laugh or be impressed by his prediction then. But what I am extremely looking forward to 2022 is 3 main things that I would love to do right now. Is that number 1, with the vaccinated travel lane becoming more and more expensive, where you can, do more travels, you can actually go for more places, and I'm sure the restrictions are starting to, loosen up as more and more people are getting vaccinated. And as well as the situation of COVID becomes less and less serious, even though we have the Omicron variant, even though it's more transmissible but less deadly, even though all this is still happening, things around us are opening up more and more. And I really hope that by then we are able to travel more. Not that I'm sick of Singapore, but I would really love to make down a trip to Malaysia, come back, or go to Batam and come back as well. I mean, I would love to do 2 of these things, but I couldn't because we are still in lockdown. And the last time I saw my websites and everything on like how's the safe travel procedure like for traveling overseas, is that for Malaysia I can't do a social visit, at least like for Singaporeans itself. So it's only allowed for like people to return back for work purposes, or for family, or for like education purposes, or whatever, or medical treatment. So this is the last thing that I've seen so far, and I really hope that, in case if I'm wrong, I really hope that in the future it will start to open up and I can go back and not just visit family, or like maybe can visit friends. And I do have a few Malaysian friends, so if any of the Malaysian friends that I know of is watching this podcast, I would love to visit you, but dealing with the vaccinated travel lanes is just so painful, I was looking through like the procedures and all of that, looking at the documents to submit, the amount of PCR tests to do. It's like you have to do it for like departure, you have to do it for arrival, you have to do it for departure from the country, and do it for the arrival in your homeland country. It's just like 4 times the cost, plus you have to do all the documents, you have to do all the weird stuff, you have to buy insurance. Yeah, it's just like, it's a lot of things to do. And it's not like I don't want to visit you, it's just that all of these documents itself is so troublesome. Like, if I don't have a strong reason other than doing a social visit, it's very tricky because it serves as a deterrent to just go overseas. And I don't want to go through the trouble to do all of this and potentially missing out one of them. So this is just one thing that I'm actually very afraid of. And because I am known to be very careless itself, so I might end up really forgetting one document somewhere. So I have to really look through if I really do want to go overseas, and I do wish to go overseas really soon. And with that is one thing that I'm really looking forward. So one of my biggest wish list is that less procedures, more like ease of travel. I can just travel back to Malaysia or travel to Batam without much issues in terms of settling all this paperwork, in terms of if you want to travel back and forth from different countries and everything, because doing all these documents is a pain to do it, and I don't like doing all of this. And I would just want to travel, just getting my plane tickets, my hotel, the accommodation, and just getting my insurance insurance done. That's it. I don't need to do like all these weird paperwork just to go to overseas. And I really hope 2022 can solve this issue. Next, I don't know if I did mention this at the start of this podcast. I'm preparing for a third season of the Lim Kopi podcast, and this is something that I'm looking forward to in 2022. I'm actually in talks to revamp the Lim Kopi podcast, and I can't wait to launch the third season of the Lim Kopi podcast to make it more interesting and to make it like more dynamic for you guys to listen. Because even for myself, I'm getting sick of listening to myself talk at the same time. So I really wish there is some sort of a rebound, and with that, like I really hope to have a guest co-host with me for the third season. That means this person will be co-hosting with me for the podcast for one season, and I'm actually in talk with this person whether like if this person is possible to do it with me for the third season. And that is one thing that I'm working on, and I hope to have more interesting topics to talk with this person, because I think we will both present interesting perspectives to the topic itself. So I can't wait for the third season to arrive, and I can't wait to present to you who is that person that I've been hinting to people about it. Finally, for the third thing that I'm looking forward is that now that I have my precious custom PC here, it's not fully done yet. I have to replace the motherboard. There are some issues with it. But once the motherboard is being replaced, I really hope that I can use this computer to play my games more often, and as well as I can, do more video editing and do more work with it. Because this specs for this custom PC is really, really good for, doing work and doing gaming. So I'm really looking forward to do more content. And one of the biggest things that I am hoping to do is to do a video per month for this year. And other than that, I really hope that for New Year's resolutions wise, in case you haven't watched my video about New Year's resolutions, please do feel free to watch it. I talked about New Year's resolutions, and please go and take a look and have a listen to it. But one of my New Year's resolutions, of course, I'm going to recycle from many years I've been using, which is to basically lose weight. I haven't been losing weight much. Actually, I've been gaining a bit of weight because of my work. I haven't had the time to really to go and exercise, mainly because I've been so tired after work, and it's a pain to wake up early to go and exercise. Prior to my booster shot, which I have taken it last week of this episode, I was doing stairs climbing. So I was doing 30 floors. I was climbing up, climbing down, climb up a bit, climb down. So that was my way of exercising. I wanted to mimic as if I'm climbing a mountain. And well, it's really fun, not gonna lie. And I'm very impressed that I'm able to climb 30 plus floors without killing myself over it. And at one point, I was doing for daily, so it was interesting. But I really do hope that I can, once I'm done with my cycle of my first booster shot, which is my third dose. Once I have my third dose, I can actually start to exercise more often. So I really do hope that I can exercise more by running, by swimming and all that, because I do miss running and swimming a lot. And keeping myself active and healthy is definitely one way to go when I move forward for this year. And I do want to see a more healthier version of myself, and I can't wait for you to see me more healthier as well, and more slimmer and more presentable for myself. So with that, 2022 is going to be an interesting year for me. I'm looking forward to many things, and I wish all the best for you guys, and I wish that 2022 will be a joyous year ahead. So in case if you're wondering, COVID is still here to stay, but let's not be so uptight about it. Yes, COVID is affecting so many lives, but let's make do with what we have. Let's continue to be thankful with what we have today, and as well as just continue to be stay happy and stay optimistic for the future, because the end of the tunnel is reaching, and we can see that light, that faint of light that is coming up from that tunnel, and we are going to reach there really, really soon. So we have come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching this episode for the very first episode of 2022. I hope to produce 2-3 more episodes before we end off this season. And with that, thank you so much. And my name is Kokao. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.